Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 months now, exploring the outer edges of the Kepler 442 system. 200 crew members called this vessel home, and Jake felt responsible for every single one of them. "Captain, we're picking up some strange readings," said Lisa Carter from her science station. She was the ship's chief science officer, a woman in her 30s with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. Lisa had joined the mission because she wanted to discover new worlds and maybe find signs of alien life. "What kind of readings?" Jake asked, walking over to her station. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the beeping of various computers. Lisa frowned at her screen. "Energy signatures, sir? Very large ones?" "I've never seen anything like this before." Tony Rodriguez, the security chief, looked up from his station. He was a tall man with black hair and serious dark eyes. Tony had served in the Earth Defense Force before joining the exploration program. "Could be natural phenomena," he said. "Right. Black holes, neutron stars, that sort of thing." No. Lisa shook her head. "These patterns are too regular, too organized. This looks artificial." Jake felt his heart rate increase. After decades of space exploration, humans had never encountered intelligent alien life. They had found bacteria and simple plants on a few worlds, but nothing more complex. The idea that they might be the first to make contact with an alien civilization was both exciting and terrifying. "All stop," Jake ordered. The ship's engines went quiet. "Sir, should I send out a message?" asked Communications Officer Beth Collins. She was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. This was her first deep space mission. Jake thought about it for a moment. "Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first." Suddenly, the lights on the bridge flickered. Then the ship shook slightly, as if something had bumped into it. But that was impossible. They were in empty space, far from any asteroids or debris. "Captain?" Lisa's voice was tight with worry. "The energy readings just spiked. Whatever's out there, it's getting closer." The main screen changed without warning. Instead of stars, they now saw sleek black ships appearing around them. The vessels were unlike anything humans had ever built. They were long and narrow, with sharp edges that seemed to cut through space itself. Strange blue lights pulsed along their hulls. "How many?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm. 12. "Ships," Tony reported. "All larger than us. Captain, they're armed. Heavy weapons from what I can tell." One of the alien ships moved closer to the New Horizon. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of their vessel. The blue lights along its hull grew brighter, and Jake could see symbols carved into its surface. They looked like writing, but in no language any human had ever seen. "Incoming transmission," Beth announced, her voice shaking slightly. "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The image that appeared made several crew members gasp. The alien looked like a giant reptile that had learned to walk on 2 legs. It stood at least 8 feet tall, with dark green scales covering its body. Its head was long and narrow, filled with sharp teeth. Yellow eyes stared out from the screen, cold and predatory. Metal devices were attached to various parts of its body, probably cybernetic enhancements. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh, like rocks grinding together. But somehow, the words came through in English. The aliens must have learned their language by monitoring human communications. "I am Commander Vex Korath of the Zephyrian Empire," the creature said. "I've entered our territory without permission. This is an act of war." Jake stepped forward, positioning himself in front of the communication screen. He had trained for this moment his entire career, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of facing an alien species that looked like it could tear him apart with its bare claws. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizon," he replied, keeping his voice steady. "We didn't know this was your territory. We're explorers, not soldiers. We come in peace." Vex Korath tilted his head, studying Jake with those yellow eyes. "Peace." The alien's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Humans speak of peace when they are weak. We have heard about your species. You fight wars among yourselves over resources and beliefs. Destroy your own planet for profit. You are no different from any other prey species we have encountered. We're not prey, Jake said firmly. Behind him, he could hear Tony quietly giving orders to the security team. But Jake knew their weapons would be useless against ships this. Advanced, all species believe they are predators until they meet us, Vex Korath continued. Altarians thought their energy shields made them invincible. The Centaurians believed their speed would save them. The Vegan Republic trusted in their numbers. All of them learned the truth eventually. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 17 different civilizations across this galaxy. Your species will be the 18th. Jake felt sweat on his forehead, but he didn't back down. Something about this alien's arrogance bothered him. Yes, the Zephyrians were clearly more advanced, but they seemed to think that made them automatically superior. Maybe we should talk about this, Jake suggested. You don't know anything about humans. We might surprise you. Vex Korath laughed. A sound like breaking glass. Surprise us? Small mammal? We have studied your species for months. You are weak, divided, and technologically primitive. Your largest weapons could barely scratch our shields. What could you possibly offer that would interest the galaxy's greatest predators? Try us, Jake said simply. The alien commander stared at him for a long moment. Jake could feel the eyes of his entire crew on him. Lisa was still working at her station, probably trying to find some way out of this situation. Tony had his hand near his weapon, ready to fight even though it would be hopeless. Beth was recording everything, making sure Earth would know what happened here. Finally, Vex Korath spoke again. Very well, human. You amuse me. I will give you one chance to prove your species has value. If you fail, your ship, and everyone on it will be destroyed. If you succeed, perhaps we will make your deaths quick instead of slow. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake turned to face his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. Some appeared scared, others angry, but none of them looked ready to give up. Well, Jake said, managing a small smile, I guess we're about to show the galaxy what humans are really made of. The docking bay doors of the New Horizon opened with a loud hiss. Commander Vex Korath stepped through, followed by 6 other Zephyrian warriors. Each one stood over 8 feet tall, their dark scales gleaming under the ship's lights. Metal implants covered parts of their bodies, and their yellow eyes scanned everything like predators hunting for weakness. Jake Morrison waited in the center of the docking bay with his senior officers. Lisa Carter stood to his right, carrying a tablet with her research data. Tony Rodriguez was on his left, his hand resting near his sidearm, even though everyone knew it would be useless against these creatures. Behind them stood Dr. Rachel Thompson, the ship's chief medical officer, and engineer Sam Walsh. Vex Korath walked up to Jake and stopped just 3 feet away. The alien was so tall that Jake had to look up to meet his eyes. The Zephyrian's breath smelled like sulfur and metal.
So...
Human, Vex said, his voice echoing in the large bay. You wished to speak. I am here. Impress me, or die. Jake took a deep breath. We want to show you that humans are worth more alive than dead. We have knowledge and skills that could benefit your empire. Vex Korath laughed, showing his rows of sharp teeth. Knowledge? Your species has barely left its home system. Could you possibly know that we do not? Lisa Carter stepped forward, her tablet in her hands. She was nervous, but her voice was steady. Commander, may I ask you something about your people? The alien turned his yellow eyes to her. Speak quickly, female. Your species lives for a very long time, correct? Several hundred years? We can live for 800 years if we are not killed in battle, Vex replied, clearly proud of this. Fact. Lisa nodded. I've been scanning your crew since you came aboard. Your people suffer from a genetic condition that causes your bones to weaken as you age. By the time a Zephyrian reaches 400 years old, their skeleton becomes brittle. Many of your warriors die not from combat, but from simple falls that break their bones. Vex Korath's eyes narrowed. How do you know this? Our medical scanners can detect it, Lisa said. But more importantly, we know how to fix it. The alien. Commander was quiet for a moment. Impossible. Our greatest scientists have worked on this problem for centuries. Dr. Rachel Thompson stepped forward. She was a woman in her 40s, with gray hair and kind eyes. Commander, humans have dealt with similar bone diseases for thousands of years. We've learned to treat them using a combination of genetic therapy and mineral supplements. The treatment is simple and completely safe. Rely one or the other. Zephyrian warriors growled. No inferior species could solve what we cannot. Rachel looked directly at the warrior who had spoken. I can prove it. Let me run a detailed scan on one of your crew members. If I'm wrong, you can kill me. If I'm right, you let us show you the treatment. Vex Korath studied her for a long moment. You would risk your life for this? Yes, Rachel said without hesitation. The commander turned to one of his warriors. Kexthorn stepped forward. A younger Zephyrian moved closer. He was still massive, but Jake could see that he was smaller than the others. Probably the equivalent of a teenager in their species. Rachel pulled out her medical scanner and ran it over the young warrior. The device beeped several times, and she frowned at the readings. This one is worse than the others, she said. His bone density is already dropping, and he's young. Without treatment, he'll start having serious problems within 50 years. Kexthorn looked shocked. I feel fine. There's nothing wrong with me. That's how this condition works, Rachel explained. You feel fine until suddenly you don't. But we can stop it before it gets worse. While this was happening, Engineer Sam Walsh had been looking at the Zephyrian equipment. He was a short man with red hair and calloused hands from years of working with machines. Excuse me, Sam said. To Vex Korath, I couldn't help but notice that one of your ships has a problem. The alien commander's head snapped toward him. What did you say? Sam pointed toward the docking bay doors. Your flagship. The quantum drive is running hot. I can hear it from here. The frequency is all wrong. If you don't fix it soon, the whole system will break down. Our engineers say the drive is functioning perfectly, Vex said, but Jake could hear uncertainty in his voice. Your engineers are wrong, Sam replied. Look, I know you think we're primitive, but we've been working with quantum technology for decades. Different approach than yours, but the basic principles are the same. Your drive has a resonance cascade building up in the quantum field matrix. Give it another few hours and you'll lose your faster-than-light travel. One of the Zephyrian warriors whispered something to Vex Korath in their own language. The commander's expression grew dark. Our chief engineer just confirmed that the drive has been showing minor irregularities, Vex admitted. But our best technicians cannot identify the problem. Sam smiled. I can fix it. Won't take more than an hour and I can do it with parts. From our own engine room? Tony Rodriguez had been watching all of this quietly, but now he spoke up. Commander, I've been studying your ship formations while we've been talking. What of it? Vex asked. You're good, very good, but you have a blind spot in your defensive pattern. If an enemy approached from Vector 7 Mark IV, they could slip through your shields and hit your command ship before you could react. Vex Korath turned to stare at Tony. That is impossible. We've used these formations for 300 years. They are perfect. Tony pulled out his own tablet and showed a diagram he had drawn. See here? Your outer ships create overlapping fields of fire, but there's a gap right here. It's small, and it would take perfect timing to exploit, but it's there. The alien commander studied the diagram. His expression grew more and more troubled as he looked at it. This is a theoretical weakness only, he said finally. No enemy has ever found it. Maybe because no enemy has ever survived long enough to tell anyone about it, Tony suggested. We're the first species to point it out because we're the first ones you've talked to, instead of just destroying immediately. Vex Korath looked around at all the humans. Jake could see that the alien was thinking hard. Everything the humans had said was true, and the Zephyrian commander knew it. You offer medical knowledge, technical skills, and tactical advice, Vex said slowly. But what do you want in return? Jake stepped forward. Nothing. Nothing. Vex's eyes widened. We don't want payment. We don't want territory. We just want to live and explore the galaxy. Maybe we could learn from each other instead of fighting. Vex Korath was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke to his warriors in the Zephyrian language. They responded with what sounded like argument, but he silenced them with a gesture. "Well, come with us to our homeworld," he announced. "The High Council will decide your fate. But first, your engineer will repair our quantum drive. Your doctor will treat our bone disease. And your tactical officer will show us how to fix our formations." Jake nodded, agreed. As the aliens left the docking bay, Lisa moved closer to Jake. "Captain, do you think this will work?" Jake watched the Zephyrians disappear down the corridor. "I don't know. But for the first time since they showed up, I think we might actually have a chance." The journey to Zephyros Prime took 5 days. The New Horizon traveled in the center of the Zephyrian fleet, surrounded by the massive black warships. Jake Morrison spent most of his time on the bridge, watching the alien vessels through the main screen. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had ever built, but he noticed something strange about the crew. During the trip, several Zephyrian warriors had come aboard to observe the humans. They watched everything with intense curiosity, especially when the humans ate meals together or played music during their rest periods. The aliens seemed confused by these activities. "They don't understand why we do things together," Lisa Carter observed. She had been studying the Zephyrians' behavior patterns. Their society is built entirely around individual strength and combat ability. They don't have families or friendships the way we do. Dr. Rachel Thompson had been treating several Zephyrian warriors for the bone disease. The treatment was working perfectly, but she noticed something else during her examinations. "Jake, I think these people are lonely," she said during one of their private meetings. "They've spent so many generations focused on being warriors that they've forgotten how to be anything else." Meanwhile, engineer Sam Walsh had not only fixed their quantum drive, but it also improved its efficiency by 15%. The Zephyrian engineers were amazed by his simple but effective modifications. They followed him around the ship, watching everything he did and asking countless questions. On the 3rd day of the journey, something happened that changed everything. KEX. Thorn, the young Zephyrian warrior, was practicing combat drills in the New Horizons cargo bay. Korath had given him permission to use the space, and several human crew members had gathered to watch. The young alien was incredibly fast and strong, moving through complex fighting patterns with deadly precision. But during one particularly difficult maneuver, Kex lost his balance. He fell hard, hitting his head on a metal support beam. The impact was severe, and he collapsed to the floor, unconscious and bleeding. "Get Dr. Thompson now," Jake shouted. Rachel arrived within minutes, her medical kit in hand. She quickly scanned the injured warrior, and her face went pale. "It's bad," she said. "He has a severe head injury and internal bleeding. The bone disease made his skull weaker than it should be. If we don't operate immediately, he'll die." Vex. Korath had been summoned as soon as the accident happened. He stood over his nephew's body, his yellow eyes filled with an emotion Jake had never seen in a Zephyrian before. It looked like fear. "Can you save him?" Vex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "The injury is complicated. I'll need to work for hours, maybe longer. And even if the surgery goes well, there's no guarantee he'll wake up." "Our medical officers say he cannot be saved," Vex said.
"They want
to give him an honorable death before the brain damage becomes permanent." Rachel looked shocked. "You mean kill him?" "It is our way. A warrior who cannot fight is not truly alive." "That's not our way," Rachel said firmly. "As long as there's a chance, we don't give up." She looked directly into Vex Korath's eyes. "Let me try, please." The alien commander was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Do what you can." The surgery took 18 hours. Rachel worked without stopping, using every bit of her medical knowledge and skill. Lisa Carter assisted her, providing scientific analysis of Zephyrian biology. Other crew members took turns helping, bringing food and water, monitoring the patient's vital signs, and offering encouragement. Vex Korath waited outside the medical bay the entire time. Jake sat with him for hours, neither of them speaking much. But gradually, they began to talk. "Kex is my brother's son," Vex explained. "His parents died in battle when he was young. I raised him myself." He's lucky to have you, Jake said. Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. Lucky? I taught him to fight. I taught him that strength was the only thing that mattered. I made him into a warrior, and now he might die because of it. You care about him, Jake observed. That's not weakness. That's what makes you strong. Your species thinks differently than ours, Vex said. You work together. You help each other. Even now, your people are trying to save someone who is not even human. That's what we do, Jake replied. We don't abandon people. We don't give up on them. During the long wait, other things happened on the ship. The human crew shared their food with the Zephyrian visitors. Beth Collins played Earth music for them, and the aliens listened with fascination. Tony Rodriguez taught some of the younger warriors human card games, and they laughed when they lost, something that surprised everyone. Artist Maria Santos, who had joined the mission to document new worlds, drew pictures of the Zephyrian warriors. When she showed them the portraits, they stared in amazement. No one had ever created art of them before. In their society, art was considered a waste of time. This is me, but different, one warrior said, looking at his portrait. I look peaceful here. That's because you are peaceful right now, Maria explained. You're not fighting. You're just being yourself. Finally, after 18 hours, Dr. Ed Thompson emerged from the medical bay. She looked exhausted, but she was smiling. He's going to live, she announced. The surgery was successful. He'll need time to recover, but there shouldn't be any permanent damage. Vex Korath closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, Jake saw something new there. It looked like hope. Why? Vex asked. Why did you save him? What do you gain from this? Rachel looked confused by the question. He needed help. That's enough. But he is not your species. He is not your family. He owes you nothing. Neither are you, Jake pointed out. But we're still here, trying to help. Vex Korath stared at the humans for a long time. I do not understand your people, he said finally. But I am beginning to think that is my failing, not yours. 2 days later, they arrived at Zephyros Prime. The planet was massive, covered in dark cities and military installations. Ships filled the sky like metal clouds, and the surface glowed with the lights of 1 billion inhabitants. Impressive, Lisa said, looking at the planetary scans. And terrifying, Tony added, as they entered the planet's atmosphere. Vex Korath spoke to Jake one last time before they landed. The High Council will test you, he warned. They will try to find your weaknesses. They will not be as patient as I've been. We understand, Jake replied. Hey, no you do not, Vex said. But perhaps that is why you might succeed where others have failed. You do not think like warriors. You think like something else entirely. What's that? She gasped. Vex Korath looked at him with those yellow eyes, and for the first time Jake saw respect there instead of contempt.
You think like friends?
The alien said. And that may be the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. The Great Hall of the Zephyrian High Council was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that it disappeared into shadows, and the walls were covered with weapons and battle trophies from conquered worlds. Hundreds of Zephyrian warriors filled the seats, their yellow eyes all focused on the small group of humans standing in the center of the room. Jake Morrison tried not to show his fear as he looked up at the High Council. 7 ancient Zephyrians sat on tall thrones made of black metal and bone. Each one was covered in scars from countless battles, and their cybernetic implants gleamed under the harsh lights. These were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, and they were deciding whether humanity would live or die. High Commander Zar Voss sat in the center throne. He was older than the others, with white markings on his dark scales and mechanical replacements for both his arms. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the entire hall. So these are the humans, he said, studying them like a scientist examining insects. They look weak, small, soft. Why should the Zephyrian Empire allow such creatures to live? Vex Korath stood beside the humans. High Commander, they have proven themselves useful. They possess knowledge that could benefit our people. Knowledge? Another council member laughed. What knowledge could such primitives possibly have? Dr. Rachel Thompson stepped forward. She was nervous, but her voice was clear and strong. "We can cure the bone disease that affects your people. I've already treated several of your warriors successfully." "Impossible," said Councilmember Thoxian. "Our greatest scientists have worked on this problem for centuries." "Your scientists looked for complex solutions," Rachel replied. "Sometimes the best answers are simple ones. We've been treating similar conditions in humans for generations." High Commander Zar Voss leaned forward in his throne. "Show us." Pulled out her medical scanner and approached one of the council members. "May I?" The alien nodded, curious despite himself. Rachel ran the scanner over him and studied the results. "You have advanced bone deterioration," she said. "It's probably been developing for 50 years. You've been hiding the pain, but it's getting worse." The council member's eyes widened in surprise. "How did you know?" "Scanner shows everything," Rachel explained. "But more importantly, I can fix it." The treatment takes about an hour and uses minerals that are common on most worlds. While Rachel was demonstrating her medical knowledge, Engineer Sam Walsh was looking around the Great Hall. His eyes stopped on something high above them. "Excuse me," Sam called out, his voice carrying across the room. "You might want to evacuate." "This building?" The entire hall went silent. High Commander Zar Voss stared down at the small human who had dared to interrupt the proceedings. "What did you say?" The High Commander growled. Sam pointed up at the ceiling. "Your support structure is failing. See those stress fractures in the main beams? This building is about to collapse." "Nonsense," said another council member. "This hall has stood for 1,000 years. "Yeah, and that's the problem," Sam replied. "Metal fatigue. The beams are cracking under their own weight. Give it another few months, maybe less, and this whole place comes down." Several Zephyrian engineers in the audience began talking excitedly among themselves. One of them pulled out a scanning device and aimed it at the ceiling. Expression grew alarmed as he read the results. "The human is correct," the engineer announced. "The structural integrity is compromised." "How did he see this when our regular inspections missed it?" Sam shrugged. "Different perspective, I guess. We humans have to build everything to last because we don't have the resources to keep replacing things. We get good at spotting problems before they become disasters." High Commander Zar Voss looked troubled by this revelation, but he continued with the questioning. "Your people claim to be peaceful," he said to Jake. "Yet your history is filled with wars. You fight each other constantly. How is this different from conquest?" Jake thought carefully before answering. "We do fight sometimes. We make mistakes. But we also learn from them. We've discovered that working together achieves more than fighting alone." "Pretty words," sneered Councilmember Vakos. "But words are meaningless. Actions matter. What actions prove your worth?" That's when historian Paul Bennett stepped forward. He was an older man with gray hair who had joined the mission to study alien cultures. In his hands, he carried a datapad containing human history. "May I tell you a story?" Paul asked. "Speak quickly, Zar," Voss commanded. Paul activated his datapad, and holographic images appeared in the air above the humans. The images showed Earth during various periods of its history. 200 years ago, our planet was dying, Paul began. Climate change, pollution, war, disease. Most scientists said we had maybe 50 years before civilization collapsed completely. The images showed flooded cities, burning forests, and massive storms. "What happened?" asked one of the council members, clearly interested despite himself. "We changed," Paul said simply. "Not because we were forced to, but because we chose to. We stopped fighting over resources and started sharing them, stopped competing and started cooperating. Saved our world not through conquest, but through compassion." The images changed to show clean cities, restored forests, and humans working together on massive projects. "Your species survived by becoming weak, Zar?" Voss asked. "We survived by becoming strong in a different way," Paul replied. "Individual strength has limits. But when people work together, support each other, refuse to give up on each other, there's no limit to what they can achieve." Artist Maria Santos had been quiet during most of the proceedings, but now she pulled out her sketch pad. As the council members talked and argued, she drew quick portraits of them. But these weren't the fierce, intimidating images the Zephyrians were used to seeing. Maria drew them as they really were in that moment, curious and thoughtful, listening to new ideas. She showed them not as predators, but as people capable of growth and change. When she finished, she held up the sketches for everyone to see. "This is how we see you," she said. "It's not as monsters or enemies, but as individuals with the potential to be something greater than what you are now." The hall was completely silent as the Zephyrians stared at the drawings. Many of them had never seen themselves portrayed as anything other than warriors. "High Commander." Zarvos studied the sketch of himself for a long time. In the drawing, he looked wise and thoughtful rather than merely dangerous. "See us as we could be," he said slowly, "not as we are," as Jake said, stepping forward. "That's exactly right. And we see potential in everyone, including ourselves. That's why we don't give up on people, even when they seem hopeless. Even when they're your enemies," asked Councilmember Thoxazon. "Especially then," Jake replied. "Enemies can become friends if you give them the chance." Zarvos stood up from his throne, and the entire hall held its breath. The ancient commander walked down the steps until he was standing directly in front of Jake Morrison. "You offer us medical knowledge to heal our bodies," he said. "Engineering skills to repair our buildings, art to feed our souls, history to guide our future. What do you ask in return?" Jake looked up at the towering alien leader. "Friendship. The chance to explore the galaxy together instead of being afraid of each other. And if we refuse, then we'll be sad," Jake said honestly. "But we'll still try to help if you need it." Zarvos stared at him for what felt like hours. Finally, he spoke to the other council members in the Zephyrian language. They argued back and forth for several minutes, their voices growing heated. At last, Zarvos raised his hand for silence. He turned back to the humans, and Jake could see that something fundamental had changed in those ancient yellow eyes. "Tomorrow," the High Commander announced, "we will give you our final answer." Jake Morrison stood in his quarters aboard the New Horizon, looking out at the massive Zephyrian capital city below. The night sky was filled with flying vehicles and the lights of countless buildings. Somewhere in that city, the High Council was deciding the fate of humanity. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Vex Korath entered the room. The Zephyrian commander looked different somehow, less threatening than before. His yellow eyes seemed tired. "I wanted to speak with you before tomorrow," Vex said. "Whatever the council decides, I want you to know that you have changed things here." "Changed things how?" Jake asked. Vex walked to the window and looked out. At his homeworld, for 300 years, we have been nothing but warriors. We conquered world after world, always seeking the next battle, the next victory. But we forgot something important. "We forgot who we were before we became conquerors," Vex replied. "My people were once explorers, scientists, artists. We built beautiful cities and created wonderful things. But war changed us. We became so focused on being strong that we became empty inside." Jake joined him at the window. "It's not too late to remember," perhaps Vex said. "Your people have shown us that strength can mean different things. The way you saved Kexthorn, the way you worked together, the way you refuse to give up on others, these are not the actions of a weak species." The next morning, the humans were brought back to the Great Hall. This time, the entire Zephyrian population was watching through broadcast screens. Billions of eyes across the Empire were focused on this moment. High Commander Zar Voss stood before his throne, looking down at the small group of humans. The hall was completely silent. "We have reached our decision," he announced, his voice echoing off the walls. Jake felt his heart pounding. Beside him, Lisa Carter gripped her tablet tightly. Dr. Rachel Thompson stood ready for whatever came next. They had done their best. Now they had to trust that it was enough. "For 3 millennia," Zarvos continued, "the Zephyrian Empire has been the dominant force in this galaxy. We have conquered 17 civilizations, have never shown mercy to the weak or compassion to our enemies." The High Commander paused, studying the humans with those ancient eyes. You humans have shown us something we had forgotten existed. You have demonstrated that true strength does not come from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to build, not from conquering others, but from helping them become better than they were. Jake dared to hope. The tone of the speech was not what he had expected. You saved the life of our young warrior when our own medic said he could not be saved. You repaired our ships when our engineers could not find the problem. You offered us knowledge freely, asking nothing in return. You saw potential in us when we had forgotten it existed in ourselves. Zar-Voss stepped down from his platform and walked slowly toward the humans. Every eye in the hall followed his movement. Throughout our history, he said, we have believed that to bow before another was the ultimate sign of weakness. We have forced countless species to kneel before us as we conquered their worlds. The High Commander stopped directly in front of Jake Morrison. The ancient alien towered over the human captain, his cybernetic implants gleaming in the light. Today, for the first time in our history, we choose to bow, not because we are weak, but because we recognize strength greater than our own. What happened next sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. High Commander Zar-Voss, supreme leader of the Zephyrian Empire, slowly lowered himself to one knee before Captain Jake Morrison. The great hall erupted in gasps and cries of amazement. Never in the 3,000-year history of the Empire had a High Commander bowed to anyone. The gesture was broadcast across every Zephyrian world. The entire population watched in stunned silence. But Zar-Voss was not finished. We bow not to your technology, for ours is more advanced. We bow not to your weapons, for ours are more powerful. We bow to something far more dangerous than any force in the universe. He looked up at Jake from his kneeling position. We bow to your ability to make others want to be better than they are, to your refusal to abandon hope even in the darkest moments, to your strength that comes not from destroying your enemies, but from turning them into friends. Jake felt tears in his eyes as he reached down to help the alien leader to his feet. High Commander, you don't need to bow to us. We're equals. Zar-Voss stood up, and for the first time since Jake had met him, the ancient warrior smiled. That, Captain Morrison, is exactly why we bow. You see equals where we saw only prey and predators. The High Commander turned to address the entire hall. The Zephyrian Empire will no longer be an empire of conquest. From this day forward, we will be partners with humanity in exploring the galaxy. We will learn from them as they learn from us. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Some Zephyrian warriors cheered, excited by this new direction. Others looked confused or angry, but most seemed relieved, as if a great weight had been lifted from their shoulders. Over the following months, everything changed. Vex Korath became the first Zephyrian ambassador to Earth, working alongside human diplomat Claire Williams to establish formal relations between the species. Dr. Rachel Thompson led joint medical research projects that benefited both races. Engineer Sam Walsh helped Zephyrian scientists develop new technologies that focused on building rather than destroying. Young Kexthorn, fully recovered from his injuries, became a symbol of the new cooperation between species. He spent half his time on Earth learning about human culture and half his time on Zephyros Prime teaching other young Zephyrians about friendship and cooperation. Artist Maria Santos established the first interspecies art school, where humans and Zephyrians learned to create beautiful things together. Her paintings and sculptures were displayed in museums across both civilizations, reminding everyone of what they could accomplish when they worked together. 1 year later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a new ship. The vessel was built using both human and Zephyrian technology, crewed by members of both species. It was faster and more advanced than anything either race had built alone. Beside him stood Vex Korath, no longer a conqueror, but an explorer. Together, they watched the stars ahead as their joint crew prepared to investigate mysterious signals from the far edge of the galaxy. "Do you ever regret it?" Jake asked. "Giving up the Empire, I mean?" Vex considered the question for a moment. "We thought we were strong when we conquered others," he replied. "But we were actually weak. We were so afraid of being vulnerable that we became monsters." He gestured toward the mixed crew working together on the bridge. "This is true strength. This is what we should have been all along. As their ship jumped to faster than light speed, heading toward unknown regions of space, Jake reflected on what they had accomplished. The galaxy's fiercest predator had not bowed because they were defeated. They had bowed because they recognized something in humanity that they wanted to become themselves. Behind them, other species that had hidden from the Zephyrian Empire for centuries began to emerge from their hiding places. Word spread quickly through the galaxy about the alliance between humans and Zephyrians. If these two unlikely species could become friends, perhaps there was hope for peace throughout the stars. The universe was vast and full of wonders yet to be discovered. And now, for the first time in millennia, it would be explored not by conquerors seeking to dominate, but by friends seeking to understand.